All right, hello. This is the weekly update for, good Lord, what is it? Friday, December 9. Been hard at work this week and got a lot of stuff done. And normally I would kind of run through a list, but I decided at this point, let's just do a demo. So I'm going to do a little bit of a demo of where things are now and talk a little bit about where they're going. But first, the usual caveat: this is hugely a work in progress. There's no art, etc. So it looks pretty bad, and that's because I've just whipped up some very simple stuff in GIMP. I don't use Photoshop. Whipped up some stuff in GIMP to just put some objects and things you can move around, and the dialogues look kind of crappy and stuff. So all of that will come later. Right now, we're just focused on the game mechanics. So I'll show you a little bit about how the game works. There's basically one sort of game element in place right now with quite a few more to come, but this will put a lot of the future updates in context, I hope, and give you a sense of what I've been doing. So we're going to switch over here, and hopefully the scene transition works, because if not, I'll have to re-record this whole thing. So I'm going to load into our game here. I'm running this in Unity, which is the tool I'm using to build the game, because it's very difficult to stream from the actual Android client. So, but the functionality is equivalent here. There are a few touch-related bugs on the Android client, but basically everything you see here can be done in the game. Excuse me, a little hoarse today. So we're going to load this in. You'll see there's a little brief full black screen transition there. That's actually connecting to the server and loading in your player profile and loading in all of your explorers and their inventory and everything. So that'll eventually be a loading screen with some animations and other stuff. And the loading time will probably get longer as we go. We're adding objects and textures and things that have to be cached and so on. So right now it loads very, very, very fast. But the loading screen is just a black screen. So we're into the main portion of the game right now. This is basically your little habitat ship, and it's, as I said, very basic. So I just created a little slightly three-dimensional room-looking kind of thing. There's a viewport here. It's kind of faint probably on the recording, but there's stars scrolling by because you're in the habitat ring, which is actually circling to generate artificial gravity. So your background is circling through a starscape, which is just very basic kind of stars I created in GIMP as well. So we have three explorers here. We have John, Thomas, and Stephanie. And this is totally live. I haven't scripted any of this. I set up a little bit of like their gear and stuff. So weird things might happen, but I'm just going to kind of show you what's going on. The element of the game that we're going to focus on right now is the exploration. This is kind of the RPG element of the Sim RPG, where you'll be doing trading and crafting, and there'll be some social elements and other things. But the main way that you accumulate wealth and the focus of the game is to gear up your explorers and send them adventuring through these portals. And we'll talk about the portals later. So right now nothing's animated, but we can just send these people through the portals. So a couple things real quick before we start them adventuring. So this is a little radio menu here. They have power cells, and the power cells are used to recharge their frames, which is basically their protective shield while they're adventuring. You can see they have a little bar over their head right now. This is their current frame capacity. So when they're adventuring and they take damage and their frame is depleted, they'll try to charge it back up. If they need to charge it back up and they don't have any more power cells and they take a hit, then they're going to die. As well, we'll probably suicide Thomas Griffin here just to show you that. If we remove their frame, so they're just exploring in their EVA suit, which has no protection, just regulates environment and pressure and so on, and something walks up and punches them, they're toast. So we'll probably kill Thomas Griffin in a bit. So a couple other things here. So character sheet. So John Stelmick is level 2 right now. You can see he has 1,800 of the 3,000 required to hit level 3. His frame capacity is currently 1 out of 10. So the next hit he takes, he's going to need to recharge his frame. He actually has an unspent stat point. I'll mess with this in a little bit, but these are his current stats: strength, cunning, intuition, R2, which is the base level. So he hasn't spent his level up point yet. And his basic resistances are 0. So the resistances, and these are bonus resistances, these are mostly increased through special gear, which I don't think we have a huge amount of yet. Let's see. So Stephanie Rollins, so she's level 1, and she's pretty close to level 2 here. So we're going to send her off on an adventure and see her level up. Gear-wise, so she has a laser pistol, which is a slightly better than basic starting item, and she has a crude frame, which is not that great. If you want to see these items, you can click the little info panel. So there's a laser pistol, has some requirements, minimum, maximum, and average damage. Excuse me. And the calculation is not converting to float right now, so this isn't accurate. The weapons have stat scaling, so they're basically melee weapons that scale off of your strength. There are ranged weapons that scale off of your cunning. And then there's a third type, which is for intuition builds, is a non-scaling weapon. So they generally have good base damage, but they don't benefit from your stats. So if you're scaling a character who's not especially based on fighting, you can use weapons that don't gain increases that way, but have good base damage and usually special effects and things, so you can kit them out. Intuition has a bunch of other advantages we'll talk about. So you can equip and unequip stuff here. So we can unequip the frame. We can equip the frame. Unequipping the frame is generally a bad idea, as we said. Let's see. We can also stash stuff. So we have a player stash here. So there's a tack knife in the stash. This is just a titanium carbide tactical knife. Not super exciting. So we can move things to the stash. The next thing I need to add is letting the explorers take things out of the stash and use them. So eventually they'll be able to trade between themselves too. But right now we just put it in and out of the stash. Pretty simple. So we're going to actually just unequip his frame and stash it. And yep. Okay. So the stash isn't dynamically reloading yet. Need to add that. Let's see here. So that's the power cell. So this guy's probably going to get killed when we send him off adventuring. And his inventory, so he has a bolt pistol and a crude frame. He also has a couple things, so I loaded these up. He has 2 of these special frame types. These are relic frames, and there's a relic weapon. So photon knife is an improved strength weapon. The Gelid cloak is red, actually, because he doesn't have the stats to equip it. So it requires a cunning of 3, and his cunning is only 2. So we're going to, and this is another fingers crossed here, we're going to actually increase his cunning to 3. Now, you notice that went up. There was a little bit of a lag. It's actually upping his stats on the server. So all of this is keeping the server and client in sync. When we level up Stephanie, we're going to... let's see, we're going to actually increase her intuition, so you can see that that'll actually have some impact on the resistances. But now we go in here and the Gelid cloak can be equipped because we meet the cunning requirement. So we want to keep John Stelmach alive, so we're going to swap out his crappy gear for some good stuff. So we're going to equip a Gelid cloak, and we're going to equip a photon knife. Now, the photon knife scales off of strength. We didn't up strength yet, so he's not going to get a damage bonus on it, but its base damage is much better than the bolt pistol. So let's see. What did I want to do? Okay, so anyway, they're kitted out. So he's using the photon knife and the Gelid cloak. You can see the frame capacity on the Gelid cloak is way higher. And let's see. He's still empty. And Stephanie has the... Yep. And the clicking's a little weird here, but this actually works really well on touch. So this is our ability here to monitor what's going on with our explorers while they're in the portal. We can't communicate with them or send them items or anything, but we can track their progress through the portal. And there's a whole bunch of backstory as to why that is the way it is. So let's send somebody adventuring here. So we're going to start off, we'll send John Stelmach out. He's going to pass through the portal and start adventuring. We're going to switch over to Stephanie here in a second. But he's passed through the portal and started exploring here, and he's going to start to have encounters. So he came across a jammed door, tried to pull it open. That's a strength challenge, so he had the strength required. He gains a little bit of experience. And there aren't a lot of different encounter types right now. There are different encounter types, I should say, but not a lot of encounters. So you see a lot of repeats here. And I got lazy with the content at level 2, so there's a trap. He hears something bad happening and something horrible happens to him. So he failed the trap check, which is cunning based. So he's taking damage here, but you can see his Gelid Cloak frame is actually losing capacity as he takes this damage. And the damage types, physical, etc., interact with your resistances. So anyway, he survived. He's returning to the portal. We're going to send Stephanie out here and hope she levels up. So she's level 1 right now, so you're going to see different content here while she's adventuring. And the mechanically, okay, so she's fighting a juvenile Ranid. Let's see, she defeated it, she recovered a Ranid hide. She's actually going to stash that loot when she finishes the adventure. She'll probably find more along the way. Now she's fighting a malfunctioning Polished. So she's shooting it with the laser pistol. Yep, so there we go. Her frame was depleted. You saw she used a power cell to increase her frame capacity. She's leveled up to level 2, so she's going to start fighting harder stuff now. At level 2, she found a taser drone, etc. Right now, this is all, like, she levels up, the content immediately is higher level. The way it's actually going to work is you're going to power the portal device with these portal cubes, which you can craft and modify. And they're going to fix the level of the content, basically. So you could craft portal cubes that are more challenging for your adventurers. They'll gain more experience. They're easy. They won't get as much experience. And so on. So the way you craft the portal cube is going to determine the level of the content, and then XP scaling is going to be, based on your explorer level versus the content level. But right now, as soon as she levels up, she's effectively in a level 2 portal. Just simplified stuff. So she's succeeded here. She's returning to the portal now. Basically the portal cube will determine the length of the adventure, the number of encounters you have. Right now, things are happening really rapidly. It's not very spaced out because when I'm testing, I need it to be pretty quick. But the longer the adventure, the more time it takes them to return to the portal when they've completed it. And they have to complete the adventure to get back to the ship. So you see they've loaded back into the ship here. She's level 2. So, as the game wears on and you have more explorers on your team, you can afford to hire more people and equip them and so on. You may be able to send some of them on longer adventures while others are crafting and others are doing shopping or trading or whatever. So there's some kind of interplay there with, how long do you want to commit this person to an adventure, etc. Also, the longer adventures, more likely you're going to take a bunch of damage and potentially die. So you have to be careful about the investment in, power cells, the gear you give them. If they die while they have nice gear, they're dead. Sorry, they're gone. The gear is gone, etc. So you have to be kind of careful. And then certain portal cubes will have modifiers that make them, potentially more loaded with traps or more full of monsters or whatever. So there are different kind of builds which you may want to balance that are going to be optimized for different kinds of portal cubes. So long and short, making good decisions will optimize your experience. Making poor decisions are more likely going to kill your people off and leave you in a bit of a bind. So anyway, so Stephanie Rollins is level 2 here. We're going to actually spend our stat point here to increase her intuition. And now her psychic resistance has actually gone up. Early in the game, psychic resistance isn't going to do a whole lot, but as the game wears on, it's more likely you'll encounter things with psychic attacks. And the only way to really get psychic resistance other than specialized gear is to scale your intuition. So even though intuition is not as important a stat from a combat perspective, it has some defensive capabilities that get more important over time. Just a bit about scaling. So let's see. Yeah, so Stephanie survived the adventure. She's level 2. So now let's give her another power cell just in case. I don't know how many she has. We'll send her off adventuring. So now that she's level 2, she's going to encounter new content and so on. Now, one thing you might have noticed is you can actually have multiple people adventuring at one time. So while she's adventuring, we're going to send John Stelmach out there too. So the portal device is actually going to let you monitor them. You can switch back and forth. So now we're tracking Stephanie's progress, and we can switch back and monitor John, and we can see John's progress and so on. So if you have multiple people, you can monitor them. But you can also go do other stuff in the meantime. So they're adventuring. Maybe I shut down the game and I go to the grocery store. They're still adventuring. So it's all managed on the server side. You can check back on their progress. You're on the phone, so you could do it on the phone, but you could also put the phone away, do other stuff. They will continue their adventures. They'll return to the ship, etc. Completely asynchronous. We could actually leave the game, gone, come back into the game, and go check their progress, and they're still adventuring. And if they had returned to the ship, we'd see them back on the deck. So all of this is, basically being managed asynchronously, which is nice. So John's returning to the portal, Stephanie's returning to the portal, so they'll load back in. So the idea is that at least with the adventure portion of the game, you don't have to be actively engaged all the time for your adventures to be operating. That's sort of influenced by Progress Quest and some of these other things. But the idea is that you should be able to engage with the game, step away, but if you don't have time to grind all day, you can send people on long adventures, equip them, and you'll still be able to engage with the game and they'll gain experience, etc. But you don't have to be 100% in front of it, all the time, basically, which is some of these mobile games are sort of semi-casual, but they have to be always up and always draining battery and stuff for you to be able to participate in the game. And that is sort of a design thing that I want to change there. So yeah, I think that's a lot of the content right now. So, basic stuff from a graphical side is just not there because we're focused on the mechanics. But while they're exploring and fighting stuff, they'll be, encountering the monster. You'll see an image of the monster. They'll have some back and forth animations for their combat and that sort of thing. For traps and challenges, they'll have kind of basic animations. And then other things they'll be able to do is you'll be able to use the money you've accumulated from gathering loot and trading and so on to add like crafting items and other things. And also the explorers will be able to go to other portions of the ship to go to like the print shop to get basic items printed, or to sell off loot early on if you don't have access to trading, to get credits to buy more weapons and so on. So you'll be expanding the business, which is right now it's just this one room. But the stash will be like a locker or a storage room. There'll be kind of crafting items, and then ideally I'd like to have it so that your explorers develop a bit of a personality. If they've been working for you for a long time, they'll develop some attachment or some relationship, not from a romantic perspective, but they'll like comment on each other, they'll develop an affinity. And that sort of thing. So they may kind of mill around, and you can have conversations with them and get their opinion on things, which will largely be a bit snarky. So yeah, that's kind of the frame of the game. So a few more things to do on the inventory side, trading between the explorers, moving things back from the stash to the explorers, and excuse me. And then we'll be adding in the other elements. Probably the first one will be the print shop, so they can go take their loot and sell them to a vendor elsewhere on the ship who will use the scrap to craft stuff and so on. And that'll give you some credits that you can use to buy equipment from them. Because right now you can only get new equipment by adventuring, and it's pretty rare because they're unique relics. So yeah, there we go. So now I think we want to try and kill off Thomas Griffin here as promised. So he hasn't done anything yet. We actually unequipped all his gear, and that will probably kill him instantly, but fingers crossed. Depends on what he encounters, of course, but the odds of him not fighting a monster or hitting a trap are pretty low. So there we go. He's fighting an infant tardigrade. Yep, he's dead. So when they're killed yet, it doesn't drop back to the main scene, because what I want to eventually do is play like a death animation, and then you can disconnect the monitor. But anyway, so he died. So he's no longer on the ship. He's no longer on our team because he's kaput, actually. He hasn't been removed from the game, actually. So right now, all the explorers you kill off and their statistics and what gear they had and so on are actually retained. So one of the things you may eventually be able to do is kind of have a Hall of Fame type thing, like a holodeck theme, where you can see your prior explorers. Like maybe you had somebody amazing, you want to retain them. They got killed, but you can keep them in your little kind of Hall of Fame. It's almost like a trophy case or achievement type thing. So they're all being tracked. In fact, it tracks what they were killed by. So you may have some embarrassing deaths that you can go back and relive. Yeah, so there we go. Kind of a longish video today, but I wanted to show you what's going on here. We had some successful adventures, leveled up, increased our stats, did some inventory management, survived some traps and challenges, and we killed someone. So all in a day's work. So next week, just a little bit of an update, and I'll go ahead and stop this. a little bit of an update for next week. I have surgery that I have to do towards the end of the month, so I'm going to be doing a consult next week. I have to travel for that, so I'll have about 2 days out, so it'll be short update next week most likely. But I'm still planning on doing an update at the end of the week. And on the business side, we're waiting for the LLC to come through. And I also ordered the first batch of the Crane Mountain Gaming hoodies, which I mentioned. So I'll hopefully, let's see, will they arrive? They should arrive. Yeah, they should arrive next Friday. They may arrive in time for the update, or it may be slightly too late. So either this one or the next one, I'll do the update and I'll be wearing the Crane Mountain Gaming hoodie, so you can see what it looks like. And if you're interested in picking one up to support me, I'll have some details about that. I'm gonna put them up on a website and you can buy those. They're not gonna be too expensive, but cover cost and a little extra for shipping and so on. There we go. So thanks for watching this, and if you have any questions about the gameplay or any of the background or content or feature stuff, etc., leave a comment on the video or on the Facebook page, and as always, I will answer your questions as long as it doesn't give away any secrets. Take care.